Okay. What I would like to talk about today is kind of the flip side of the laws of prosperity that we spoke about a couple of weeks ago, or a few weeks ago, right? So in the laws of prosperity, we spoke concerning how one could be prospered, how one could prosper, and just looking at those universal laws, and pretty much seeking first the kingdom of Yahweh being the number one thing, and that righteousness, and so everything begins to turn. Because once you start seeking the kingdom of Yahweh, which most people think that is outside, or I mean, they may hear that it's inside, and they may read it in the scriptures, but usually when someone start to think about the kingdom of Yahweh, they somehow begin to think of something outside their space. Now, there are watches that are outside our space, but they're also subject inside the kingdom too. And these watches are pretty much our older brothers, who are more advanced brothers, who have not descended into flesh, so they're there. However, they're all part of this one kingdom, and everything actually is hidden inside of the individual who has descended in flesh. So we have all descended in flesh, and before we descended in flesh, we were an aspect of that kingdom. Well, like, you know, what you have now is that kingdom, a part of that kingdom. Like you look at a hologram or something like that. You take out a part of a hologram, you have the very same part. You have the very same aspects of the hologram. It's just in a smaller package. And so that smaller package, now that whole smaller package descended into flesh. Well, that's still the kingdom of heaven right there, but now the kingdom of heaven has gone into flesh, and the flesh, if you will, or the nature of where we are right now, has caused all the obscurity that we can't access that which is in that part of the hologram. We can't see. We're in blindness. However, it's all in the individual already. The individual has to pretty much do certain things to wake that up. So if we seek first the kingdom of heaven, then this is the very first part for that prosperity. And that prosperity is not just riches or nothing like that. I mean, it's not even riches. It's simply you and I coming to the point that we're waking up as we're doing certain things, that, as the Father would put it, before us, and we start waking up to those things that the Father has put before His children to do. As we start waking up to that, then the energy around us begin to change. Okay, so part of that law of prosperity now is actually the law of giving and receiving, or you may want to call charity. Giving is in what they call charity. Now, the thing about it is, now you don't want to give just to receive, because that's not going to work, because it has to be something that is done, and it has to be done from the intent of the heart to actually be in the place of giving. Not okay, I'm going to give this so I can receive that, because that's not the right intentions. Okay, because everything in the temple, okay, when it comes to whatever is offered in the temple, has to be done through free will, and free will through a willing heart. So now the more that you and I give, actually, the law is the more that you receive. But we don't want to give to that. We don't want to do it for that manner. But the more you give, the more you receive. Okay, so now we don't want to think about, well, giving in money or this and that. Now those individuals who are elites and who run the planet, they give a lot. They have all kind of foundations that they give, and it's just a law that they have certain things coming back to them because they're fulfilling those areas. Okay? Now, when you're generous, you receive generosity back to you. Okay? Giving help to someone, whether it's financial or otherwise, anything will never deplete you. is always becoming, because what you're doing, you're keeping the conduit that we talk about, you're keeping it open. Okay, so that energy that you're putting out, financial or otherwise, is actually coming back to you even stronger. Remember we talked about now you put your funds out there or whatever, or you put your gift out there, and it comes back shaken together, pressed down, concentrated. So it comes back stronger. Okay, so we don't want to be stingy in how we're giving. We want to give with a pure heart as far as what the giving is going to be. And the thing about it is, Yahweh promises that you will always be rewarded for the act of charity. Now in the scriptures, charity is also translated love in certain areas, because this is what love is. Okay, so if the individual loves, that person is going to give to that, and it's not going to be stingy. If we love ourselves, we don't act stingy with ourselves. If there's anything that we love and we want, we don't act stingy for it or towards that thing. We go out and we do everything that we can to deal with that thing. Now we have to look at it in the same manner when it comes to other people and situations and conditions around us. We have to look at it in the very same manner, because everybody is an expression of our Father. No different than you and I are expressions of our Father. So the other side of the law of prosperity now, and not even the other side, it's actually part of the law of prosperity, is the law of giving or charity. Okay, so we're going to go to our first scripture here, and it's going to be Acts. Okay, Acts chapter 20, and we're going to look at verse 34. Okay? It says, "Yes, you yourselves know that these hands have ministered to my own necessities and to those who were with me." Now, this is Shaul. Okay, and Shaul is not talking about funds here, because he didn't have a lot of money, but what he was doing, he was giving himself, he was pouring himself out in a work that he believed in, and he was given this. And so, if you remember Shaul now, he says, "I have fought a righteous fight." Okay, he had given pretty much all that he had, and he says, from here on in, there's a crown that is waiting for him, because he gave all that out. And we have to look at it as more than just what we're receiving in this earth, because the things that we give in this earth, we are going to receive it back, not necessarily in this earth, but you're going to receive a great more, okay, because the kingdom that you're going to wake up to have so much more to offer. So whatever you're giving, you have so much more to receive, because you are totally opened up. It's like you're totally enlightened to certain things when you move into this kingdom. When you start realizing this kingdom that's there, your innermost being all of a sudden starts to communicate with you, okay, with your personality, and it starts to direct it, telling you where to go, showing you the things that we are all stuck with, and telling us how to cleanse ourselves. And usually the things that we're stuck on and find to be important in this life are the things that are they're not important. But we tend to gravitate to those things. Okay, so here, he's not talking about funds, he's talking about the effort that he's given to this work. So he says here in verse 35, "I have showed you all things, how that so laboring or giving, you are to support the weak." The weak in spirit, okay, the ones who really don't know, and we have to be patient with those individuals. So somebody could be weak there's a physical means, okay? Somebody could be weak financially. So it's not just weak in a particular area, but it's whenever you see someone who is weak, he may not or she may not be in a place that they could take care of themselves, it is considered weak. Okay. And to remember the words of Yahshua Messiah, how he said, it is more blessed to give than to receive. However, in this life right here, because it's kind of inverted in this place, we generally feel that it's better to get something, and that's what we do. We seek to get. We don't think about giving. We think about getting. If you look around and you just think within the self, just think about what we put our minds to do when it comes to things that are important to us. Do we look to receive, or are we looking to give something and allow the universe to bring back to us? If you think about it, 99.9% of us, we're looking to get something. Okay? So here we're seeing that Yahshua said that it's more blessed to receive, to give than to receive. And Yahshua is the individual who was on this planet, or one of the individuals who were on this planet, that was emanating the very spirit that we have been disconnected from the Garden of Eden, if you will. We have been disconnected from that. So now he came in to show us how to be reconnected. Now let's go to Matthew. Okay, we're going to go to Matthew 7. So what he says, it has a lot of weight, because what the individual is doing is leaving an example or displaying an example for us to follow. In Matthew 7 here, okay, because this is what we put out, and this is what we give. Whatever we give, this is what we have coming back to us. It says, do not sit in condemnation, because when we sit in condemnation, that's what we're giving. Okay, we're giving this condemnation. But when we give the condemnation, look what comes back. So that you too will not be condemned. Because when we sit in condemnation, we have to understand how this works, because this works in the sense that we are telling all that's about us, the whole law, all the laws of the universe, that we also could handle this matter, and this is what it needs to be in our life, our space too. Whatever we're putting out is something that we want to be everywhere, and we want to be inclusive in that. Well, we don't know that, but that's what we're doing, okay? Because when I say this needs to be the rules for that person, because that person is also part of me and part of the expression of the Supreme Father, what I'm saying is, well, this is what's supposed to be for everybody. I'm putting this in a law. And so because I'm putting it out, I'm the one now that has to get caught up in the balance wheel of this whole thing. So what I put out is going to come back. Because if I put something out and it creates imbalance, well, who is responsible for the imbalance? I am. I'm responsible for the imbalance. And if I put out something and it brought forth great blessings to everyone, well, that's the fruits of my labor. I get to partake of that fruit. Okay? Either way, it's going to come back to me. So it says now, for with what judgment you judge, you will be judged. Whatever I'm going to give, that's what's going to come back to me. And with the same standard, with the energy that I put in it, and how I judge it, okay, the same standard you use, it will be the same standard that is going to be used when it comes to coming back to me. So if my standard is really something that, okay, I'm going to be very liberal in giving, or be very considerate in giving, Well, that's how it's going to return to me. And it's going to return in folds, 7 folds. So we have to think about this. And it's not just money. It's our attitudes, how we present ourselves to others, our kindness. That's what we're talking about here. So all this is what we're giving. It's all part of your charity on this planet. And whatever we put out, this is what is going to be coming back. Okay, so now and the last time we spoke 3 weeks ago, we spoke concerning the prosperity. Well, you can see it here, but it's not just prosperity that we're talking about here. We're talking about anything. One side of the coin or the other. Now we're going to go over to 2 Corinthians. 2 Corinthians, we're going to look at chapter 9. Okay? Chapter 9. And we're going to look at verse 6. Now this is Shaul to the Corinthians. Remember, Shaul was a project of Yahshua. Okay? And he was a project of Yahshua. Yahshua chose that individual because that individual was very, very schooled in the law of Moshe. Being schooled in the law of Moshe, though, he was blind when it came to the intentions of Moshe. So he couldn't move it to the area of spirit. However, when Yahshua dealt with him, remember, scales were removed from his eyes, and all of a sudden, he started understanding what Moshe's intentions were. And he understood that Moshe had to meet these Israelites where they were. And he expressed the same thing, that he's meeting the Gentiles where they are. Because you can't meet anybody else. You can't meet anybody above what they have been given. You can't go above anybody's pay grade. It won't be given. It won't be taken. They're gonna regurgitate it. He's gonna come back up. It's like trying to force feed a baby. That baby is not gonna hold it down. So 2 Corinthians chapter 9, in verse 6 here, it says, "But this I say, he who sows sparingly or grudgingly also reaps sparingly. He who gives in that manner, that's how he receives. And he who sows bountifully will also reap bountifully. If he gives in that manner, this is how he receives. Each man should give what he has purposed." Notice where it has to come from, guys. In his heart. Because if you purpose to give a nickel in your heart, and because of everybody's looking at you, you give $10, you're only going to get a nickel's worth. That's all you're getting. Because it has to be based upon your heart. It can't be you and I trying to override something because the pressure is there, because it's not really in us. Okay? Now, the kingdom of heaven is in us, and this is what the individual or all of us have to churn. This is what we have to fan. Okay? And as that kingdom is awakening in us, we can't be afraid to express it. We have to put it out, because that's what you're on this planet for. You and I are not on this planet to live for ourselves. We're not, because we're not our own. We have to express what is in that heart. Now, if what's in that heart is really what we have been seeking as far as the kingdom of heaven and its righteousness, well, when it comes out, all the blessings of that kingdom is going to come back to us. And it doesn't have to be finances. Okay, so now each man should give based upon what's in his own heart to give. Not grudgingly, okay, because it's not, if you're going to give grudgingly, it's already said if we do it grudgingly or sparingly, that's what we're going to get, a grudging return in anything. Nor out of necessity, because someone is looking or whatever, or there's some kind of pressure upon us that we have to do this. That's not really what's taken, because that's what is present in the physical world. Now, how we have to act and react is based upon what is in the spirit world. because the kingdom of heaven in you is not a physical thing. It's spirit. Okay? Now it's that very same little part that has come down, and it's simply part of the greater extent of what the kingdom is all about. It's simply a microcosm of the macrocosm. And so this is actually what is in the individual now. So we have to focus on that, because that's what you are. Okay? This is what you really are. You are not the personality walking around here. That personality is going to go. And the vessel that personality is inhabiting right now, that is in this earth, that's going to go, because it can't go back to where you really, truly are from. Okay? And where you reside also. Don't think that you reside only right here. No, your mother is what they call New Jerusalem. Okay? She still has her children. She hasn't lost any of them. And you are one of them. Okay, so now here we go. Okay, so not out of necessity, as though one's arm is being twisted or anything like that, for Yahweh loves a cheerful giver. Yahweh loves a cheerful giver. And guess what? Those who Yahweh loves, guess what he gives? Now, he loves everyone, but some of the children have to be corrected before they fall into the stream of receiving certain things. Now, those children who are already doing certain things in that stream, they're simply going to receive folds. Now, remember the parable of the talent. You had one guy that had one talent, but he didn't do anything with that talent. Now, it's not like the father hated that person. Now, that person was loved too. But that person has to be corrected, because the attitude that person came with was selfish. So they had to be corrected from that it wasn't a selfish thing, but it would be more of a selfless thing. Now, the other guys, they were investing what they were given, and they were receiving. So whatever they had received, they got even more. It became multiples upon what they were receiving already. But the guy who didn't have anything, even what he had was taken, because he had to get into the corrective mode to come into the stream of prospering or receiving whatever positive things that he gave. However, what he gave was very sparingly. It was actually he was taking back what he should have given. He did nothing with it. So what he received was nothing. It's just a law. He couldn't get anything because he did nothing. And those who did something, they were going to receive based upon what they got. It's simply the law of giving, or the law of charity. So here now, so Yahweh loves a cheerful giver. So the ones who actually are giving, and not stingily in any kind of manner, or out of necessity, or grudgingly, okay, they have something to get, because they're not going to fall into the stream of correction to get on the positive side. Now in verse 8 here, it says, and Yahweh is able to make all blessings abound towards you, that you also, having all that you need in all things, not money. Do you see that, guys? In all things. Okay? In all things. Now, notice what he's saying here, because he's not saying want. He didn't say all that you want and all that I want. He's saying all that we need. Now, this is where the need comes in. Because the Father has everyone on this planet, believe it or not, and he's holding everyone in the place that they are, and they have to meet certain things where they are. And everyone, to get where they will ultimately be going to, they have needs in order to get to that place. or to get to that consciousness or to get to that space, they have needs. Now, when the personality comes in now, the personality wants all kind of stuff. Because the personality gets caught up in all kind of passions and desires. Now, the passions and desires that we have, these are not needs. And the passions and desires that we have, they remove us out of the area of giving, because the passions and desires cause us to all of a sudden want. We want things. So now we start to receive. We want to receive all kind of stuff. We want to receive this new car. We want to receive money. We want to receive financial, all kind of stuff. You know, all kind of blessings, so we could do all kind of things with money. This is what, you know, the passions and desires of society that it comes on. So it causes us to lose our capacity on the other side. So that's what's happening. Now, the passions and desires, notice where they lurk at. It says they lurk in our members. They lurk in the physical body. They lurk in the bloodstream. Okay? They lurk in the spirit that you and I receive, that actually moves in us as oxygen, and actually is delivered all through us by the iron that is actually in our vessels, by the iron that we put in. It goes into each cell, the oxygen or that spirit. And Yahweh is not going to change that, because He wants you and I are the ones who are going to come to Him to believe. When we believe, because we're seeking first the kingdom of heaven, guess what is in the oxygen pocket that comes into us? The same breath, the nefesh, the spirit of Yahweh, that's on the right-hand side, that's what comes in. And that is able to be distributed to every cell in the body and changes it. It changes it. It goes down to the bone and marrow, and it starts to change you from the very area where your DNA is being created. Okay? This is where it's at. And changes an individual. It takes a little time, because it's over 7 years of the completion, but you're going through these stages. And depending on how much we give into this, you see a great reward over 7 years. If we give to this sparingly, well, we're going to see a little bit over 7 years. You know? And this comes down to the things that we're going to be thinking about, okay? The things that we're going to be speaking, and the things that we're going to be acting upon. This is where it's at. This is all part of the tools that we have to give. Okay? To give. So when this takes place, Yahweh could give you all of your needs. All the needs. And we have to now move to the area of need. Whatever you need to prosper in this land, you receive. As long as you're doing the things that your Father tells you to do. Okay, so He's able to give you all you need in all things, that you may have an abundance of every righteous work. As it is written, He has dispersed abroad, He has given to the poor, His righteousness, it remains forever. Now may He who supplies seed to the sower and bread for food both multiply your seed sown and increase the fruit of your righteousness, while you are enriched in every way for the greatest generosity, which through us brings about thanksgiving to Yahweh, to our Father. We're seeing how it works. It's all in the scripture, but it's telling you and I in a subtle manner, these are laws. Okay, whenever you see Yahweh's able to do this and that, it's just talking about the law of nature. Well, you don't see it because you don't see it as rain that falls down, and you don't see the birds, because this one is spirit. This is spirit. This is how we allow things to come into our space. This is how we move and we open doors. Okay? that we're ready for, because we're not going to open a door that we're not ready for. Okay, we won't do it. If some people will go in and they'll go ahead and force themselves through, but trust me, they're going to be cast back out, because you can't function somewhere that you're not invited into. We could force it, but we're going to be thrown back out. Okay, so now let's go over to Proverbs. Proverbs chapter 19. And right now, we're going to go into little areas where it's just talking about how you're giving and what happens. Now, it's going to say, well, Yahweh does this, but when you think Yahweh, guys, think the natural order. Okay, just think the natural order. Okay, now, where is Yahweh? Yahweh is in you. Think about it. You live and have your being also in Yahweh, because Yahweh is the creator of all this heaven and this earth and this universe. Notice I said this. Okay? So you live and have your being in the one who brought you here. The one who brought you here have moved you out to do a job for that one. So you're not your own, you're part of a family, and you and I just don't know that we have a job to do. Now, we're waking up to it, but we just didn't remember that we have a job to do because we fell into the lower depths of the earth, which is full of passions and desires, and that's what we're wanting. Okay? So because we want a certain thing, and we're doing everything working towards that, we have actually given up what really truly counts. Because we're expending our energy upon the things that really don't matter, instead of expending our energy in looking to see how we could fulfill our duty. Because remember, your only duty is to reverence Yahweh, right? So if we could expend our energy in the duty, then we find that everything comes into place, and the things that you and I need to do the job that we've been put here for, it comes. We don't have to go seeking after this or that or whatever it may be. We don't have to, because our needs are supplied. So one thing that comes with that now is belief. We talked about that before, quite a few messages ago. The power of belief. Okay? The power of your faith. Now we have to move that and couple that into everything that we're seeing here now. Because what you're believing is going to be paramount. That comes into play with everything that we're looking at here when it comes to you and I giving and what Yahweh brings back to us. Okay, so we've got to believe His Word. So in chapter 19 of Proverbs, we're going to look at verse 17. It says, "He who has pity upon the poor lends to Yahweh." Lends to Yahweh. Really what you're doing is doing the job upon the earth that Yahweh has given you to do, because one thing you and I are going to find, the poor is here, and the poor is not going to go anywhere. Because the poor has a job. The poor has a job in order to define the sons of Yahweh. The poor has a job. Okay? And many of the sons of Yahweh are amongst those poor, and they're going to be coming out, and as they come out, they're going to be rich spiritually, not necessarily in money, but the poor is always going to be on the planet, because they are set here to exercise the sons of Yahweh. So, okay, so now 19 and verse 17, guys. Okay, so he says here now, "He who has pity upon the poor lends to Yahweh, and that which he has given, Yahweh will repay him." Yahweh will repay him. Now, I'm going to read the next verse. It's kind of off a little bit, but this is where the corrective mode comes in. Okay? When we look at the parable of the sower, not the sower, the parable of the talent. Okay? It says, chasten, correct, and discipline your son while there is hope. So the one who did not give anything, the reason why it was taken from him, because this is actually what's happening. It's a corrective measure is going towards him. There is always going to be hope, because remember, all Israel will be saved, and all Israel is a representation of everyone who has come in here that Yahweh has propelled in here to do a job, to get those who are stuck out. Okay, now look at the rest of the verse now. Okay, so we got to do this while there is hope. Do not spare him for his crying. A lot of people say, well, this was so-and-so, why did Yahweh let people suffer? No, Yahweh is correcting the situation. And people are going to suffer. Okay? The individual, and all that's suffering, guys, is the personality. The true individual, who you really are, nothing is happening to that individual. Okay? Who you really are, nothing is happening. All that's really going on is the personality that is feeling the pain, because the personality has the job of expressing the Father while it's here. And if it's expressing something else, it has to come into balance. It has to come to the point that it's expressing the right thing. And it may not do it for its lifetime in here, okay? It may not do it. However, corrective measures come in order for that to take place. And corrective measures always going to be there. So in all that, we have to look and see how we're going to be given in order for Yahweh to receive us, or for us to receive the blessing of Yahweh. Now, the ultimate blessing of Yahweh, guys, is the same blessing that the priest had. Remember the priest? The priest didn't have anything from amongst his brothers. The inheritance of the priests, which are the sons, was Yahweh. Was the fact that they had the consciousness of Yahweh. Now, did they really have it as just individuals upon this planet? Many of them didn't. But notice what they put their minds to. They put their minds to studying. Okay? They put their minds to all kinds of anointings with different kind of oils that would set the body up in a certain frequency. Okay? To wake up. Make it easy for the individual to wake up. In all kinds of ceremonies and rituals. This is what was happening. Now, you don't need all those things today. You could use them still. But you don't need all those things today, because today it's trying to tell you that this is all going to be based upon what you believe. Okay? The priest was responsible to the people. So the priest was always given to the people. They were always giving something to the people. So they were going to be receiving an inheritance, and that was Yahweh's. Now, if they didn't give to the people, now they were going to lose. And the Levitical priesthood, they became corrupt. They did not give to the people. Do you know what happened to them? They were dissolved. They were dissolved. Okay, let's continue to look. Okay, so we're going to go over to Deuteronomy now. Okay, Deuteronomy. So don't spare your son's crying or your daughter's crying. Just remember that whatever is being given in this land right here, the flesh is not really it. So we'll look at Deuteronomy 15. Excuse me. Deuteronomy 15. Now, if we're going to go to verse 7. Now let's go to verse 6. Now, Moshe is telling the children of Israel throughout all the Torah that they have to function as one unit. That is so key. That is such a key that you would not believe how much that matters. To function as a unit. So throughout the whole thing, he's saying, just don't go do what you want to do. Make sure you're doing as we're talking about right here. Every man going about doing what is right in his own eyes. That ain't so. So let's do this thing right here. Yahshua ben Nun also told them, listen here, if you don't want to do what we're doing here right now, you go back and you can serve those gods or whatever you want to serve. But know that myself and my house, this is what Yahweh has given me here, okay, to direct these people. So if you want to come with me, this is what we're going to do. But we got to do it as a unit. Whoever doesn't want to do it as a unit, they're welcome to go. No one actually is going to be there to make those individuals feel horrible, or at least they shouldn't. They just choose another way. So in verse 6 here, it says, no, we're going to go to verse 5. Sorry about that. It says, and there will be no poor or needy among you. Notice, only if you fully obey Yahweh your Father. Because when there is no poor or whatever among you, this is when everything is being redeemed. There can't be anything poor if everything is redeemed back to its former state. However, he's telling these children of Israel now, if you do this, which is very hard for the children of Israel, and even us, because we get ourselves caught up in the earthly desires. So only if you obey Yahweh your Father and are careful to observe and do all that he tells us to do, all these laws, which I command you this day. Now remember, one of the laws was that Moshe laid down was Yahweh is going to raise up somebody like me from amongst your brothers. That's the one that you got to listen to. That's a law too. For Yahweh your Father will bless you just as he promised. We got to believe that. You shall lend to many nations, but you shall not borrow from them. You shall rule over many nations, but they shall not rule over you. Well, we have that situation going on right now that they're ruling over us. They're ruling over us because we have forgotten who we are. Once we start to wake up to who we are, believe it or not, guys, we could present ourselves to those nations and we could have equal station with them. This is what Yahweh says. Now, because this is in the earth, they may try to kill you. That's okay. Because this is not what everything is about. Everything is not about what you are on this planet. But there are laws that are set up, believe it or not, that you could go before these nations and says, this is what Yahweh says, let my people go. Truly. I won't talk about that today, but that's for another time. In verse 7 it says, if there is a poor brother living within your cities, in the land Yahweh your Father is giving you, you must not harden your heart nor be tight-fisted towards your poor brother. Now, poor is not necessarily financially. It's the same thing as that weak individual, okay, that you're going to try to help. Now, you're not going to be tight-fisted or grudgingly try to help them. You're going to assist them as much as you can. But notice that everything that you do is going to depend upon how they receive you. Because they don't have to receive what you're giving. But then it's not upon you. Now, it says here now, but you must be open-handed to him and willingly lend him enough of whatever he needs. Because if you lend to him, this is what Yahweh is telling the children of Israel now, who are supposed to be, or the sons, if you give, then guess what? You're lending to me, your father. And you're going to be supplied so much more. And it's not talking about finances, but think about it, guys. The first thing you want to think about when you think about how Yahweh is going to give to you, because Yahweh is spirit. And how he's going to give to you is in spirit first. That's how you're going to receive something, is in spirit. Now he instructs all the watchers. He doesn't have to instruct them because they have a heart to do exactly what is laid out already. And all the watchers who are those who didn't enter in, who are still there, they are looking out for you and I, and they're not going to come and intervene in anything about us or for us unless we request it. We have to request it. Do you know why? Because they allow us to have our free will. They allow you and I to have our free will. Because our free will is our birthright. And they will not interfere with the birthright. Okay? But they're here, and they want to give you liberally, but they're going to give you and I liberally based upon how we give. How we give. Okay? So when we cleanse ourselves, believe it or not, you're giving attention to cleanse yourself, that you could receive that which your Father has, that's already ready and abounding all around, to wake you up. And when you wake up, all of a sudden you know you have a duty, and that duty that you have upon this planet is to give further. And your Father, when you give further, your Father continues to give you, but you can't hold it in, that conduit. You have to keep on letting it out, and the more you let it out, the more he gives, puts in there. But it's not money. If money is what you need, yes, that's going to be supplied too, but notice, remember, if it is something that is needed, because he supplies the needs, all the needs, not necessarily the wants. Not that he can't. Okay. Now in verse 9 it says, be careful not to think this evil thought, the seventh year, the year for canceling debt, is very near, and then you have no compassion on your needy brother, because this is going to cause an issue to take place with the sons. We're going to create some imbalance here, because this is not talking about people who are already doing this stuff here, people who are being greedy and trying to control their brothers in some kind of way and keep their brothers in debt. It's not that. It's talking to the children of Israel who Moshe delivered the law to. And it's telling them not to go do what these other guys in other nations do, because this is going to create imbalance in our space. Okay, so here's now, when our needed brother needs something, he says here, make sure that we don't become tight-fisted to that guy when he needs it. We're going to have compassion. Okay, so compassion is a gift that your Father gives you, and this is something that we display because he gives it to us, we give it out. If he gives us compassion now, and someone is needing compassion, and we hold that compassion back, we're clogging that conduit, that pipe. Because he has given us compassion for us to display, for us to put out. It's an outstream. But all of a sudden we have the negative part of the individual, which is in the personality or ego, and then all of a sudden says, no, you want to hold on to that because that guy does this, that, whatever the case is, and he don't deserve this. Now we have allowed compassion all of a sudden to be infiltrated by the lesser nature. The lesser nature now overrode with, if when we go on it and we do exactly what that says, that we allow the lower nature to override the instructions of Yahweh. When we do that, we create a blockage in the pipeline. And the energy or the spirit of your Father, which is energy, does not flow through the pipeline. It is blocked. Now this blockage it displays itself in a lot of ways, depending on what it is that we're doing. And it blocks the energy centers of your body depending upon what we're doing. Okay? So it could block the energy center of the heart if we start not liking folks. Love can't freely flow out. This is just, it depends on what we're doing. So we have to make sure now, as sons that Moshe is speaking to, we have to make sure that we're able to give what we are receiving. We can't hold it because we clog the conduit. Yahweh loves a cheerful giver, because when he gives to that giver is going to move it out, the conduit, and give it to who he wants it to be supplied to. This is what's taking place. Okay. So now, if we allow this to take place in our person, and we don't supply this energy that's coming in, notice what it says here. Your brother then just might appeal to Yahweh, and the evil your brother is suffering will come upon you. Well, it's a corrective measure. Now, when it says the evil, then your brother might appeal to Yahweh, don't think your brother has to appeal to Yahweh in his conscious state in the planet. Your brother here is in flesh and blood, but your brother is not just in flesh and blood. Let me explain to you. Yahweh is spirit. Yahweh is omnipresent. He's not just in one place. Yahweh is in you. He breathed the breath of life into man, and man became a living being. Who breathed the breath of life into man? Because the creation came about through many sons. Many sons. And each one of those sons was an expression of Yahweh. All that was a microcosm of the macrocosm. So everything that was in the head, the Father, was in the sons. The hologram, the same thing. Everything that's in the Father is in the sons. Now the sons, like has to beget like. So if your Father is omnipresent, guess what's in the sons? The sons have the same ability as the Father, because the Father has put everything within the sons. Okay, the Father, as he has spirit within himself, or life within himself, so he gives it to the Son, which is the only begotten Son. That only begotten Son, everything that comes out of that only begotten Son starts creation. Creation doesn't come to the physical world until it comes through spirit. Other spirit beings. These are sons, and they have the same thing as the Father. So when the sons project themselves into the earth, do you think that they're all stuck just in the earth? Or do you think there's another aspect of them just like the Father? Because the same kingdom of heaven that's within them is in the Father too. Same thing. Like is begetting like. Now the individual who goes about now and appeals to the Father is the same one that the Scripture tells you about, that his Malik may go before the Father. And when that Malik goes before the Father, who is that Malik? That Malik is another aspect of you. That's going before the Father. The conscious man doesn't have to know anything. He could be in the earth suffering and don't know. He could be in a place that he's totally cut off. But you have a Malik, which is your priest, which is your higher self, that's still doing things. This is the one that Moshe wants you and I to connect with in the temple, when we bring our sacrifices and we meet the priest, the common priest. The priest and I and the priest and your priest and you, we are going to be sharing things. We become individuals who are going to share, but we're going to share based upon what you and I are giving up. And what we're giving up is our sacrifice. We come with a sacrifice. That sacrifice has to be willing, and we're giving it. And you're giving it in the sense that you're giving the beast nature up. Giving the beast nature up, you're filled with another nature. You're filled with another nature, and that nature that you're being filled with is light, but it's coming from your higher person, the priest. Now, your brother, who is going to be going before your Father to appeal, doesn't have to be your brother in the earth. That sounds crazy, doesn't it? Well, we got to get our minds out of the functions of the earth. We got to get to our minds in the functions of things that are unlimited. Even though there are limitations in flesh, outside of this, guys, there are no limits, except for that which, is put upon us, that's outside of this universe and outside in another state or dimension or higher consciousness above all of our creation. Because we just can't go into whatever we want to go into. So we got to think about that. Okay. So the suffering that the brother is having now, it doesn't have to be this individual. The brother in his conscious state going before the Father. The individual could go before the Father without flesh. He could go before the Father without this individual that's in flesh praying a single word. And at the same time, it could be that individual who knows that he's been oppressed by you and I and goes and prays. But I'm just telling you that it doesn't have to be. Now, the scripture tells us that when we go to give our sacrifices, if we find out at that time that our brother has something against us, okay, then we need to leave the sacrifice there and go make amends with our brother. Now, that also is not talking about just your brother who is in the flesh that you may have an issue with and you have done him wrong. No, your brother, you're going to look past your brother, you're going to look past your brother to Messiah, who is over everybody. Okay, that's your brother too. And if the Spirit of Yahweh has given to you and I and has administered information to us that we have not done the right thing as far as His Word is concerned, His Word is coming straight out of the only begotten Son, which is, guess what, is going to be considered your brother. So if there you go and you know something is not right, because it doesn't have to be you and I fighting against another person, because then it would only be if something is going on with someone outside of you. Well, in the same manner, our sacrifice will not be accepted if there's something going on inside of us. If something is going on inside of us and we're searing the conscience there, nothing has to be going on outside against another individual. But whatever's going on inside, it's against the brother. And that brother is what is coming through the stream of the laws of Yahweh. So whatever is going on inside, if I have a bad issue going on inside me, I don't have to be worried with my brother. But my sacrifice will not be accepted in the same manner, whether it's me warring with my brother outside of me, or whether I am having some issue within myself that I need to cleanse. Either way, I need to leave my sacrifice there and go and make it right, because my sacrifice is going to open doors for me to go to the next level. I can't go through this door when I have certain problems. I could force myself through, but I'm going to be bound hand and foot and cast back out. It's going to be dark. Okay. Now, we go to verse 10 now. He says, you must surely give to him so that, the things that he's suffering doesn't come back upon you and I. And you will not give to him grudgingly, for you are actually lending to Yahweh. All the children have to know this. It's not your brother. Your brother is not his own. He's an extension of the Father, just as you are. And everything that you do for the next person, you're doing it unto your Father and you. Okay? You're lending to Yahweh, and Yahweh, your Father, will bless you in all your works, and in all you put your hands to do. This is for the sons. He's setting the sons up, and the poor is going to be always there as long as everything hasn't come to the end that everything is redeemed. They're going to be there because they're there to exercise the ones who are going to be ascending. You and I giving is part of our ascension. Learning to give and not give grudgingly, that's part of our ascension. But the poor will never cease from the land. Well, the poor will cease sooner or later, but it's not going to cease from this physical land at this point, because everything will cease when everything is given back over. When everything has been redeemed, then there's no need for this. So until the end of the age where everything is redeemed, there's going to always be poor. Therefore I command you, saying, and this command does not go to the Gentiles, guys, or those who are outside the covenant. This is going only to the sons, to keep them in the place that they don't fall, that they keep things balanced, that they give to Yahweh by giving to their fellow man and paying attention to themselves. Okay, so here, therefore I command you, saying, you shall open wide your hands to your poor and needy brother in the land. We have to give that. Yahshua said the very same thing in Matthew 26. Let's go over there real quick. Matthew 26. Okay? Matthew 26, and let's go to verse 11. 26 and verse 11. Okay, it says, for you have the poor with you always, but me you do not have always. The poor is going to always be there until everything is redeemed. When everything is redeemed, there's no need to get a poor out, because the poor will also ascend. The very last one will be going out. So the poor is going to always be there, and the poor is there to set you and I up so we can ascend as sons. So we can ascend. Now, Now let's go to Psalms. We're going to go through a few scriptures very fast because we're out of time. But I just want you to think about these right here as we go. Okay? Now remember, the poor is not just someone who don't have money. We have been led into thinking that, but it's not just that. Okay, Psalms 41, let's look at 1. Blessed is the man who considers the poor ones. Yahweh will deliver him in the time of trouble. In the time of trouble, how about tribulation? Tribulation. Now, during tribulation, who are protected? Okay, the ones who will do and follow the Son wherever he goes. These are the ones protected. Now, does it mean that they won't physically die? No. Many of them will physically put the body down, but they will ascend. Let's go to verse 2. Yahweh will protect him. He will keep him alive. Blessed is he upon the earth, and you will not deliver him into the will of his enemies. There's a protection that comes there, right? Look at verse 3. Yahweh will strengthen him on his bed of illness. You will sustain him on his sick bed. Now, it doesn't mean that the individual has to be dying on a sick bed. Don't look at it always as the physical thing. When we're ill, we don't have the strength that we would normally have. Okay, and our bed is actually where we cause ourselves to lie down. Something you and I will do, we cause that to come in our space, and we call that, and spiritually, it just says, well, you make your bed, you lie in it. Well, your bed may be full of something that is illnesses, weaknesses, unrighteousness. And we have to, whatever it brings, that's what we're going to be lying in. And if we have done certain things that are proper, Yahweh will strengthen us in that state and bring us out of it. In Psalms chapter 112, verse 5, it says, an upright man deals generously and lends to the poor. So, same giving. He will sustain his affairs through justice, through doing the right thing. That's how he sustains his affair. Because guess what? As he's giving, there's a certain spirit that is being given to him. He can't clog it now by allowing the personality or the ego to come in and use passions and desires to override the justice or the righteousness that's there. Because if he does, that creates an imbalance. It creates a clog in the conduit. In verse 6, surely he will not be moved forever. The righteous will be in everlasting remembrance. He will not be afraid because of evil tidings. His heart is steadfast, trusting in you, O Yahweh. There goes the trust again, right there. His heart is established. He will not fear, for he will look upon his enemies in triumph. Even if he hasn't triumphed, he's going to look at it in that manner. That goes back to what we have within the mind. He has dispersed. He has given to the poor. His righteousness endures forever. And his horn, this horn guy, is a power. Is a strength. That's all the horn is. Will be exalted with honor. Let's go to Proverbs 22. And we're going to read verse 9. Okay, verse 9. It says, a generous man will hear himself blessed, for he shares his food with the poor. All this is what he's giving, and the conduit is opened. him to receive. As he receives, he's giving with what he receives. 19, go back, 19 and 17. Proverbs 19 and 17. He who has pity upon the poor, now we read that already, okay? It's something else. Lends to Yahweh, and that which he has given, Yahweh will repay. Now, some of us have issues, and we have done certain things, and of course, we have to turn that back around. Now, if you go over to Ephesians chapter 4, I'm not going to necessarily turn there, because I'm sure you all know this. Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 28, it says, he who steals, let him steal no more. In other words, this is how he's going to start opening that clogged pipe, because he's allowing the lower man to rule him. So now when he receives the strength to allow the Spirit of Yahweh to override that lower man, he's going to stop doing whatever he was doing that was causing the clog. So now he says, let him work. He must work. Doing something with his hand or his power, his strength, to undo the time, to undo what has been coiled up against him. This is what we're doing. This is why we have to go through this corrective mode of our Father dealing with us, coming into our space, and directing us slowly but surely for us to overcome all the issues of our passions and desires that we have lurking in our members, and that we have in the personality, which causes us not to want to give, not to want to have anything to do with the charity that we're talking about here today. Now we're going to Ecclesiastes. Okay? And I'm going to read 2 scriptures in Ecclesiastes, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to close for today. So the first one is going to be in Ecclesiastes 11. Okay? And we're going to get verse 1. And it says, cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days. Believe it or not, that's talking about giving. It's talking about giving with the right spirit. You put out with the right spirit, and the blessing that Yahweh puts back in that conduit for you to receive, it comes after a certain time. It comes back into your space. And most of the times, it will be when you need it. When you and I need to be delivered from something, as we read before, okay? Delivered out of trouble or tribulation. Now let's go to chapter 12 of Ecclesiastes, and let's look at verse 13. It says, let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. It says, reverence Yahweh by observing, keeping his laws, by doing what he says. Now, what is taking place when we do what he says? Guess what has to happen? We have to put down us. In other words, we're giving ourselves into Yahweh. When we give ourselves into Yahweh, Yahweh pours into us. It's like, prove me now and see if this is not true. See if I don't open the windows of heaven and pour out a blessing to you. Prove what I say now. Do what I say and see if you don't see it. So it says, reverence Yahweh by observing his laws. Notice this, guys? That is the only duty. That is the only duty that man has. You know what happens? Or, the founding fathers have put this very same thing down. Not in those words, but the founding fathers has put this in the Declaration of Independence. He says they say every man has the right to serve the Creator and the natural laws that the Creator has set down, and it is entitled to them. That's their entitlement. In other words, it's their birthright. And the founding fathers, they know that. And it has come down in the laws that you have now, which the founding fathers, they were all Freemasons, except for maybe one. Believe it or not, they were all Freemasons. They were your brothers who came before you to set something up. They were forerunners. Now, they understood certain secrets. Certain ones don't want you to know. And they understood this. And they showed that everyone had the right to seek his Father in the manner in which the natural laws and his conscience would direct him to. And in seeking your Father, when it's in the righteousness of your Father, you have to give a sacrifice. This sacrifice that you give is charity. It's of yourself. You can't come and just give any putrid animal. You have to give the best. The best means you give your best. It's all giving. When you give your best, then your conduit opens up, and you receive what the Father has to put in that conduit. But it'll all be based upon how we do it. If we do it grudgingly, then it returns grudgingly. If we don't do it at all and we bury it in the things of the earth, then we have corrective measures coming to us. If we are diligent and we put it in there, then we receive abundantly. It all depends upon us.